we are going to move on to animals and the law, and I'd like to welcome up our representatives from the State's Attorney's Office here, Alyssa Rebulinski and Anthony Ursuto.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll get started while my partner is also now getting mic'd up. My name is Alyssa Rebulinski. I'm an Assistant State's Attorney at the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. That's Anthony Ursuto. He is also an Assistant State's Attorney with the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. Myself, Anthony, and two other coworkers were the ones that are tasked with handling the majority of the animal cruelty cases, because as you're about to hear, there's obviously a lot of background that goes into these, but more importantly, what we're focusing on today is the animal forfeiture process, which is something that has to happen in a very short time span and very immediate. So that's what we're going to cover today. And we have a couple case studies for instances in which we actually did forfeitures, and then obviously you'll hear about how then those cases proceeded in court. Additionally, you'll see there's going to be a lot of slides that have just a lot of information, and I'm not going to talk about everything in those slides, but it's information for all of you to take back and have as references. But please, if you guys have any questions, we're more than happy to answer all of them. Okay, just some kind of background as to why all of this matters. I'm sure all of you are pretty well aware, but as you know, there is a very well documented link between cruelty to animals and violence towards humans. There's the landmark study that showed that people who abuse animals are in fact 5 times more likely to harm other humans. Also, 43% of those who commit school massacres committed acts of cruelty to animals, generally against cats and dogs. Additionally, there was a study that found in 88% of homes where there was physical child abuse, there was also animal abuse. And then a study showed 89% of women who had companion animals during an abusive relationship reported that their animals were threatened, harmed, or killed by their abusive partner. So, I know that all of you care about animals, but, it is important that we're handling these animal cruelty cases in the fashion that we are, because as studies show, if they're abusing animals, they're most likely abusing people. All right, so the first case that we're going to talk about is a case where it was an aggravated animal cruelty, and not only did we do the pretrial forfeiture, but we had a pretrial forfeiture full hearing, as well as then I'll tell you about how the case ended up getting disposed of. So this department, it was Woodridge Police Department. They did a phenomenal job. They called our office, our felony screening line, right away to let us know what was going on, so we were able to help them along the way with what sorts of evidence we were going to need, making sure that our animal hospital was documenting what we needed to have documented. And then we were involved then from the get-go with the pretrial forfeiture process. So this case started off with Woodridge being dispatched to the VCA in Downers Grove for a dog that had reportedly been beaten by the boyfriend of the owner. The abused animal was a Shih Tzu, a 7-year-old Shih Tzu named Bella, and she weighed approximately 10 pounds. All right, so the injuries to Bella that we had noted from our veterinary experts. So her injuries were consistent with traumatic injury. She had multiple teeth missing, as well as displaced teeth, an actively bleeding back molar tooth, linear abrasions in the inner part of her ear. There was already bruising present along the inside dorsal pelvis. She had multiple fractures in her zygomatic arch. Her ALT levels, so that liver enzyme, which is indicative of some sort of traumatic injury, was too high to read. It was actually off the charts. Multiple broken ribs, as you can see, on both sides. She also had a healing fractured 13th rib, which was indicative of prior abuse as well. She had hyphemia in the eye, and then she also had air in the tissues in her abdominal walls. So she was in terrible shape, to be quite honest. So the evidence that Woodridge was able to gather in this case and helped us be able to be successful in the pretrial forfeiture, as well as the actual criminal case. They got witness statements from all of the animal hospital staff. They got a statement from the treating veterinarian. We got the medical records, including they were able to find the prior medical records of examinations of both Bella, and you're going to hear about there was another dog in the house, Blue. And just to let you know, Blue did not have any signs of abuse, which is actually important, and I'll explain why that's important later. But Blue also got a full vet exam as well. But Blue was also subject to being forfeited, and I'll tell you about how that kind of worked when we get a little bit further. X-rays, dental records. The girlfriend who owned Bella, we had a recorded statement from her. And then the defendant gave a recorded statement. The officer did a phenomenal job of confronting the defendant with pictures of the dog, because obviously he was downplaying the injuries, downplaying what happened to the dog, and then when the officer was pulling out the pictures showing the injuries to the dog, quite frankly, he didn't really have much to say about that. And then the defendant, when he was shown the pictures of how horribly beaten this 10-pound dog was, he tried to make it sound like he was defending himself from the 10-pound Shih Tzu, and he had this cut on his ankle that he said that he was defending himself, which, as you can see, it's a massive cut, and so it makes sense that you would beat a dog for that. But what also is important about this is that the officers took that picture, because it just shows how ridiculous his statement is, right? And so that picture actually, I think, was incredibly important. So when Bella first presented at the vet, here's a few photos just for you all to see. And also, too, with Bella, her care was significant, and she needed to stay overnight at the animal hospital due to the fact that she had limitations in feeding, as well as obviously other limitations. So it was important that she stayed at the overnight vet. As you can see here, just even from this x-ray, even though, I don't know, we might have a vet in here, but I'm no expert, but all of you can actually see where some of those ribs are broken for yourselves. And then, as you can see, there's multiple fractures on each side of her zygomatic arch, so like the face plate. I mean, you can see that for yourselves as well, even without being medical experts. And then when the vets put a fentanyl patch on Bella, they did a nice job of shaving off a patch, and you can see just how bad the bruising on her body was. And just, to note, these pictures that I'm showing you, it's also important that when we're, doing these kind of animal cruelty investigations, that we are documenting progress, not just the actual injury, but progress, because as you know, injuries can progress and actually look worse after it happens, right? So this was important, showing the progression of the bruising along her body. And then when she was able to go back to the Naperville Animal Control, here's what she looked like when she was discharged from not only the hospital, but she also had emergency dental surgery. And just another side note here, there was significant injuries to the dogs. Obviously, there was significant bills and vet bills. And so during this time period, in addition to working on making this a good case, dealing with the pretrial forfeiture, the officers and the animal control officers were able to secure a grant from the Animal Legal Defense Fund, which you'll see later in this PowerPoint slide. I have resources from the Animal Legal Defense Fund, because they actually gave us a grant that paid for all of Bella's emergency medical needs. So as I stated a little bit earlier, there was another dog in the house. His name was Blue. He was a puppy. Obviously, you guys can see that he's a French bulldog. So we knew there was another companion animal in the household. And so with an assist from the Naperville Animal Control, they helped us take possession of not only Bella, but actually we went and seized Blue for the forfeiture decision, which would obviously also then mean that we were going to have to fill out the appropriate paperwork. And we'll talk about that paperwork a little bit later. So after we seized the dogs, after we filled out all the appropriate paperwork, which you're going to hear, there's an inventory, there's an affidavit about what happened. We have to file a petition for forfeiture, and then we have to get all these documents served on the offenders and anyone who claims ownership in the dogs. So after we did all of that, we actually had to go to a forfeiture hearing because the defendant was not agreeing to relinquish his rights to the dogs. Specifically, he liked his dog Blue. He didn't like Bella because that was his girlfriend's dog, but he liked Blue. And what matters in this situation, as I stated earlier, Blue had absolutely no injuries to him, so it shows he knows how to take care of a dog because he took very good care of his dog, but then obviously beat little Bella senselessly. So the forfeiture hearing ended up being 6 total days in court. We had 3 veterinarians testify. The lead officer, Officer Beggy from Woodridge, she testified. She did a phenomenal job. Officer Mack, the original responding officer from Downers Grove, he testified. 2 eyewitnesses who worked at the animal hospital. And then we had the deputy who served the paperwork on the defendant at the jail, the petition for forfeiture. And then the animal control officer from the Naperville Police Department who took care of Bella and Blue. She testified about the progress of Bella's healing and then how the 2 dogs got along because the defendant at one point was trying to make it seem like the 30-pound puppy was the one who caused all of those fractured ribs and the fractures to the zygomatic arch and all those other ridiculous the injuries that you saw. So this was Bella when she was hanging out at Naperville Animal Control. So she thankfully lived a much better life. She was forfeited, and Blue was also forfeited, and they now live in wonderful homes. And the defendant ended up pleading guilty after the forfeiture hearing, and he actually got sentenced to 18 months in the Illinois Department of Corrections. So now let's get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty before we get into the second case that we'll talk about, which is going to be an animal cruelty case, not an aggravated animal cruelty case. So under this section, 510 ILCS 70/3.04, this is where the heart of the pretrial forfeiture law lies. So the purpose of forfeiting animals pretrial, according to the courts in Illinois, the statute is for the protection and the well-being of animals. It's not an additional punishment, because this forfeiture hearing is actually civil in nature. It's not criminal, it's civil. So it only applies to companion animals. And companion animals, according to statute, means things that an owner considers to be a pet. So, for example, if one of you is dealing with maybe like an animal cruelty to a horse, you'll want to ask questions to make sure that it is more of a pet versus perhaps a working type horse or maybe some sort of farm life type horse. I know here mostly we're just going to be dealing with pets, but just something to keep in mind if you're dealing with something that is not your traditional household pet. Okay, probable cause and arrest. So in order to do a forfeiture, officers have to have already determined that there's probable cause to make arrest for misdemeanor offenses, either animal cruelty, depiction of animal cruelty, teasing, striking service animals, poisoning prohibited, confinement in a motor vehicle, and the guide, hearing, or support dogs. So you have to have probable cause for an arrest and have arrested someone with one of those misdemeanors, or you got felony approval for one of the following offenses: aggravated cruelty to animals, animal torture, animals in entertainment, injuring or killing service animals, and then guide and hearing and support dogs. The dog was killed or disabled. So after you've either arrested someone for one of the misdemeanor offenses or gotten felony approval for one of the felonies, consider to yourself, do you want to seize the abused animals and or the other animals in the possession of that person being arrested for possible permanent forfeiture? So this is something that you should be thinking about during the arresting process, because like I said, this process has to move very quickly. All right, so you've made the decision to seize and seek to forfeit the animals. So what's next? You must file an affidavit that is notarized under the criminal case number. So as you know, you'll get assigned a criminal case number when you charge someone. You must file an inventory that is notarized under the case number. So the inventory is going to be exactly what it sounds like. You're just stating, for example, one small dog. If you know the type of breed, you include that, and then just a general description. In the affidavit, you'll see one a little bit later, but the affidavit is basically just a short synopsis of what happened, and then you just also include where the dog or cat or whatever animal it is going to be currently housed. Note, the affidavit and inventory are essentially like a search warrant in its inventory. So that's kind of a simple way to think about it. All right, affidavit. This is the following information that you're going to want to include on it: the name of the person charged in the complaint, the description of the companion animals taken, the time and the place they were taken, the name of the person whom the companion animals were taken, the name of anyone who claims to have ownership in the companion animals, if it's different than the person who was arrested, and then where you're expecting the companion animals to be taken. So if they're coming here to the DuPage County Animal Services, you'll just put that in the address. If they're going to a hospital first, you'll put that, and then if you anticipate that they're going to a hospital and then here, just include that information. Inventory. Like I stated earlier, when you're delivering the affidavit on a defendant or someone who claims ownership, you also have to deliver the inventory. It's also notarized and filed under that case number. Type of information you're going to want to include: the name of the companion animal if you know that there is a name, the type of animal, the breed if you know it, general description, and the date of birth if you perhaps know that as well. And then I will turn it over here to Anthony.
Thank you. And then really quick, on serving notice to anybody who has, or who you may think be the owner of a dog, that includes, let's say they got a dog from some random person 8 years ago, and that person is still on the microchip. We're gonna need to know that information because we're gonna have to give notice to that person because that's still someone who might have some type of ownership in the dog. So not only if it's the girlfriend's dog, and the boyfriend abused it, but then somebody else is on the microchip, we're gonna have to give notice to every single one of those people. So make sure you're checking the microchip as well and letting us know if it's somebody else's name that has nothing to do with the case on it. Now going to state's attorney review, the state's attorney must file within 14 days of the arrest a petition for forfeiture prior to trial. I'm stressing 14 days. That means all of this paperwork that we're about to talk about has to be filed, and we really, really would appreciate your guys' help with being responsive to any questions or anything that we ask you to do. If we ask you to write the affidavit, please get it to us as soon as possible because we're on a tight time crunch. Because not only do we have to file it, but we also have to get notice out as well. The petition must give the facts regarding the incident, possibly include any exhibits. So that's when I asked to help us out here, make sure you're sending us all the photos that you're taking, videos that you're taking as well, and include the exhibits that we talked about, the affidavit and the inventory. Affidavits of service, like I said previously, the persons whose animals were seized and are attempting to get forfeited must be served with the following items: the affidavit, inventory, petition for forfeiture prior to trial, copy of the statutes and their remedies, which I believe Laura created like a nice little handout that she could give you. We also have them too that has all of the statutes and the remedies that need to be served to anybody who's involved. Affidavits of service are filed with the court. This makes it clear that this makes it clear on the record what persons were served and when, and we must prove notice to be able to move forward on the petition for forfeiture prior to trial. Once again, like Alyssa said, this is for the benefit of the animal, and the state asking for a motion to continue isn't gonna look good if we're saying, hey, the reason we're filing this is because we want to get these animals adopted out so they're not stuck in this shelter for the entire 2-year-long time period that this case is running. So we need all this stuff filed so that we don't have to ask for a motion to continue on the date of the hearing because we don't have all this stuff filed. So just make sure that I know some people think of it like, oh, it's just an animal case, but how it's written, we really have a tight time schedule. So this is sort of a flow chart that Alyssa created for the whole process. It gives you the statutes that are affected or that go into play or trigger this process, and what to do, which this is sort of just for you guys to take a look at in the handout. So these are going to be some examples of the paperwork. We have the affidavit, inventory, affidavit of service, and the petition for forfeiture of companion animals prior to trial. So like Alyssa said, the affidavit is just honestly going to be what you would write in a police report, but you're just telling the court, this is what happened, this is why I seized the animal, this is the animals that were seized. And it's very basic information. Then the next thing that needs to be filed is the inventory. Once again, this is just, like Alyssa said, going to be the name of the animal. Here it's Jasmine, approximately 7-month-old female pit bull dog, gray in color. And you're telling the court that that is what you seized and that is what animal control has currently. And also in the inventory, real quick, you're going to say where you also put the animal. You send it to DuPage County Animal Services or wherever the dog is currently being held. Or it could be bird, horse. So next is the affidavit of service. This is telling the court exactly what you served and to who. So here it's the laundry list that we previously said, a copy of the Illinois statutes and the remedies, copy of the affidavit pursuant to the statute that demands that, and the inventory once again. A lot of it seems redundant, which is good because a lot of it could be copy and paste for you guys, but we are going to need all of it. And then this is the affidavit of service, basically saying that whatever officer served so-and-so on this date. And if something changes, then we have to change all this paperwork and send you guys back out to reserve these people.
In this one, just so you guys know, you saw the affidavit of service on the defendants, and this one is an affidavit of service on the defendant had made a comment that this Yvette Johnson lady also owned the dog. So just to be abundantly safe, we served her with all the paperwork, and when she got served with the paperwork, she's like, I don't know nothing about that dog. It's not mine. I didn't do anything to it. But just to be safe, we still served her, and this was an exhibit that was put in at the forfeiture hearing, just so she couldn't come back later and say, hey, wait, that's my dog. I wasn't told. And then, us have to go through all the hoops and problems.
And a lot of people say it's my mom's dog or it's a friend's dog. You still got to figure out who those people are and serve them. So then this is the big kahuna, if you will. This is the petition for forfeiture of companion animal prior to trial. This is something that me and Alyssa will mainly prepare. It's quite lengthy. Once again, with the time crunch, we need all the information that we can from you guys, so we just ask for your cooperation. That includes, if we send it to you, to just look over to make sure everything we're telling the court is correct. So just take your time when reviewing it as well, because the last thing we want is you on the stand at the hearing saying, I never did that, when that's what we were told that you did through the amount of people that we are getting information from at that time. So the next is security posting under 510 ILCS 70/3.05. There's this cool little thing where we could sort of, in layman's terms, make the defendant pay for DuPage County Animal Services housing the animal. That happens sometimes. It also happens in times where the animal has significant like medical issues, or if it has like a certain type of medication that it has to take that's expensive. A lot of the times they will actually agree to it, which is weird, but I think personally that it is a way for them to say, no, I do really love this dog, and no, I beat the hell out of it, but look at it, I'm paying for its bills while it's at Animal Services. But that's something that we also like to file, and that's more on our end, and it will cover medical care, food, boarding, etc. And I'm sure DuPage Animal Services likes when we ask for this. So this is now a case of Jasmine. Sorry about that. Jasmine, this is a Woodridge Police Department case where units were dispatched to a store parking lot for a male who was punching a dog repeatedly. This was in 2022 in July. It was extreme, not too hot, but hot enough for if a dog was in a car, there would be issues. So it was 79 degrees and sunny. The abused animal was Jasmine, now named Stella, a 7-month-old pit bull mix. So there's 2 911 callers that alerted the police department, which we appreciate, and we were able to get the 911 calls, which we'll show you in a second. But the evidence that they took were the 911 calls and the evidence recorded, and the eyewitnesses recorded in written statements, the recorded interview with the second caller, which they were able to come back. I believe the second caller actually came back to the scene to give his interview, so that was very nice of him. Detailed photographs of the scene. Jasmine was then taken to Arboretum View, the VCA hospital, to get looked at. Records from the hospital, recorded interview of the defendant. The weather conditions were also addressed, and the defendants recorded at the WPD station. And there's a Weber grill in his trunk, which is weird, but he cared a lot about the Weber grill. Not so much about his dog. I don't know why he had a full Weber grill in his backseat, but he did. He hit the dog, the witnesses said, around 10 times. When the officers went in, they did see like feces in the car. And I think, from my understanding, is he was really concerned about the Weber grill because there was feces on it. But it was like, dude, you're the one that punched the dog. That would not have happened if you didn't act like that. Anyway,
And
so
yeah, and I was gonna say, and he wasn't asking about how his dog was or where his dog was located at that time. He just kept asking, so did you guys take my Weber grill? Is it in my car? Did you leave it on the scene? So it was just really weird.
you would have thought it was sponsored by Weber Grill. Like, the amount of times he said Weber Grill, I was like, dude, are they paying you? Anyway, this is the 911 call from that date. Hopefully you could get a little.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
R&J Convenience Food Mart at the corner of James and 83rd Street. There's a man over here beating the shit out of his dog in the parking lot by his car.
Okay. That's at R&J Food Mart?
Yes, that's corner of 83rd Street and James and Woodridge. Okay. Dog is like screaming and whimpering every time he's literally punching it in the body.
Is he in a vehicle?
No, in the parking lot outside the vehicle. He was just sitting in the middle of the parking lot without a leash after he slapped it around. Then he's like, it looks like he's trying to get it back into the car. I mean, he hoisted it up by the collar, dragging it, and then literally full body punching it while it screams. I don't even know if this is worth police time, but I'm a little worked up, pardon me.
And then from there, it's just getting more information. But as you can see, that statement goes to show that a lot of people are a little hesitant to report animal cruelty, even when they see a full-grown man full body punching a dog numerous times. So that's why it's important. If he sees something, say something. But that's why it's important to take these cases seriously, because the more people take these cases seriously, the more they're going to be taken seriously. Like, the more times people like this Good Samaritan is actually making those phone calls, the more we all in this room will be taken seriously, and the more that the courts will take it seriously. So this is Bella after officers arrived. As you can see, there is some signs of distress on her. Her footprints are caked in feces because it appears that she, from being punched, was defecating. And that was out of stress, at least that's what they believed. This is the Weber Grill picture. As you can see, his car, so to have a dog in that car on a hot day is also a little concerning, but clearly not good signs of a good owner. This is the defendant, and as you can see, his car is still packed with things, and then you can see that Jasmine, I want to call her Stella, is in the back seat of the car when officers arrived, and you could tell just by how she's standing and how she's acting that there is some signs that she's under stress, and she just does not look like she's comfortable around this guy.
And she very freely went with the Woodridge officer, Officer
Yeah.
Maggie. She was like, I'm free.
Oh, yeah. She was very happy. So what happened, the forfeiture decision, this happened on the 2nd, so it was made right away on July 3rd. Felony screening was contacted regarding the forfeiture and seizure. Now, I just want to say this is probably the situation that you guys are going to run into more times than not. Alyssa, what she talked about was a felony aggravated animal cruelty case. A lot of the times you're gonna get these Class A misdemeanor cruelty to animal cases. We have a super broad law in Illinois, so that's good, but just make sure that you know that you can still forfeit an animal on the Class A misdemeanor of cruelty to animals.
And even if it's a Class A, even though you're not going to be screening it, like if you're working with an officer or you're calling it in, even though you're not screening it for a felony, if you're not, you still call felony screening, DuPage County felony screening, because they're the ones who then will get in touch with us, and then we'll immediately start working on the forfeiture process.
Because remember, we have that tight time period. So this will be more of a situation. And also, just so you guys know, you cannot seize, or a dog cannot be forfeited, or any animal can't be forfeited for violation of owner's duties. They can for cruelty to animals, violation of owner's duties, you cannot take the dog, but confinement of a companion animal to a motor vehicle, you can. So that's just one thing also. So we filled out the appropriate paperwork on July 3rd, served the defendant with the inventory affidavit of service, followed up with attempts to serve the petition and notice of the hearing to the defendant, and follow-ups were documented. So we tried. The attempts originally were not, they failed. So they were trying again, then they would document every time they went over and tried to serve him. And then they sent notice of the hearing via certified mail as well. Whatever you're sending, if it's for one of these hearings, do it by certified mail. Preferably by hand, though. I'd like you there, but certified mail works as well. So the forfeiture hearing was a one-day hearing. The defendant and this female owner failed to appear. All appropriate documents, though, like Alyssa said, were also served on that female as well. Officer Bagey testified as to the contents in the petition. Officer Hogan of WPD testified. The DUCOM employee testified to get in that 911 call. Laura Flamion testified. And animal control officers from DuPage Animal Services testified as well. And then we also entered the certified mail as well to prove up notice. Now, the best part about it is on a Class A misdemeanor, he did get 364 days, which is the max, for cruelty to animals. And then he also has a lifetime ban on owning animals. So that is a great thing for our county to show that we take this seriously, and sends a message to other people as well. And now I'll throw it back over to Alyssa for the resources.
Yes, so this is quick. This is all material that you're going to have, but as I stated earlier, it's really helpful to have some resources available. So one of these is going to be the Animal Legal Defense Fund. There's going to be information included with the number for the criminal justice group. They're the ones that have helped us not only secure grants, but there's been a couple times where we've had to reach out to them because there was certain experts that we needed that we just didn't know where to find them. So
And
they've gotten, and necropsies. So they've gotten me linked up with a forensic vet. Forensic vets are obviously able to testify as to what actually caused an injury, not just what the injuries are, but what caused an injury.
And we also don't know where to get a herpetologist. Or
Yeah, they know all sorts of stuff. And so here's just some information that you're going to get as well. And then this just kind of gives an overview of what their criminal justice program can help. And then included in there, this is just kind of a little sheet that they give about just reminders of certain evidence that is going to be in animal cruelty cases. So that'll be in the packet.
Oh, can I just speak on something? I saw one case where I love this question this thing that the officer put in is when he was searching the house. He said that he did not see a single toy. And for some reason that resonates with animal lovers. So also make notes of what is not there. If you don't see food or water bowls, if you don't see toys, that's something to also look for.
And then some of the other materials just include when animals are being examined, how to take good photos, what to take photos of. And then I also included some information from the ASPCA that's also helpful, resources that are available. And I will say too, other than the resources that I gave you, the ASPCA helped me recently in a case. I had a case where a dog was abused and it was a domestic type of relationship, and he was upset that the girlfriend didn't come home from the club and that he was at home. The kids were upstairs. Because she wasn't home yet, he was threatening to kill the dog via text, and then sure enough, he did kill the dog. And then he sent photos of dog blood in his car, and the dog was found later in a dump site. But the ASPCA got us hooked up with, because the officers took blood from the car, and then we took blood swabs from the victim dog, Rocco. And then the ASPCA found me a vet lab in the University of California, Davis, and they tested the blood and confirmed that it was a DNA match between what was in the car and then the dog that was found. So, for example, I still use these resources frequently when there's certain pieces of evidence that I just don't know where to go. So anyways, just kind of to end on a bright note, this was Bella when she was healthy, Bella in blue. It's just cute. It's just a good reminder of, I know that it sounds like with these cases, a lot is being asked to be done up front in the forfeiture hearings, the paperwork, it's a lot. However, these are the outcomes that we get. So I think it's definitely worth it. This wouldn't be a presentation if I didn't throw my own dog in there. So, and he's adopted. He's a rescue dog. I would never buy from somewhere like Furry Babies. But anyway, so with that, I have my information up there, and you'll be able to get a hold of Anthony that way as well.
I have my card. I'll pass away cards.
Yeah. But anyways, at this point, we are free to take any questions that you guys might have.
And I will say I did adopt my cat from here too. So.
He did. Yeah, he tried naming his cat Nachos, and Laura was like, I'm not adopting this cat to you if you name it Nachos.
It's Benji now. It was an orange cat. Nacho would have been a cute name.
No, he would not have been cute. Benji's much better. It's
Benji
much
is
more
better.
fitting. But yeah, if you guys have any questions.
Any questions? Anybody need therapy?
Yeah, we got here.
Control side, like a CSO, like
Yeah.
you have to get all the forfeiture paperwork done first and see if there's.
Take these and pass.
You can't just take that dog out of the house, they have to get the forfeiture paperwork first and then be able to.
So there has to be an arrest. First, there has to be an arrest. And then after the person's arrested, a lot of times the cases that you just saw, while the person was still in custody under arrest for whatever the charge was, the police department had reached out to felony screening, both on the misdemeanor and the felony, and they still had the defendant in custody. And while they were still in custody, we started the affidavit and the inventory. So it kind of happened simultaneous. The petition for forfeiture, we can file within the 14 days, so we work on that. But the inventory and the affidavit are two things that it's really easy, because the nice part about us getting that done while the defendant's still in custody is we can serve them with as much of the paperwork right out the gate while they're still in your custody. So it just honestly, it saves a step. So, yes.
We're in multiple counties. Is the timeline very similar?
Same.
Counties?
It's the same.
Okay.
And so what counties do you have?
And we're DuPage.
Cook and DuPage. Okay, so with Cook County, I would reach out to your guys' felony review if you have this happen. Because I think their felony review would then be able to get you linked up with whoever is going to end up dealing with that. Because I've actually dealt with Cook County actually very recently, and they did a phenomenal job doing a forfeiture of, it was like a search warrant, was guns and drugs, and then it was dogs most likely being used in dog fighting, and they got the dogs forfeited right away. So I would call felony review. But it's the same exact timeline. And I would suggest probably doing the paperwork in the same fashion that you would do it here versus you would do it there, because it's the same requirements. So, yes?
We have something sort of in this realm, but what if the situation occurs, if it is a stray or if it was in a household with an owner or caretaker cannot be identified, but there is severe injury and the animal is taken to a vet, this, that, whatever, and what if it's outside that 14 days when it's actually discovered who was responsible or, that type of thing?
It's
Yeah.
it was 14 days from when the person is arrested.
Was arrested, yeah.
So once we find him, yeah.
So my suggestion with a situation like that, because he's right, is just making sure your documentation is very clear about that timeline. Because, for example, there have been cases similar to that that we've had where we then file the stuff within the 14 days of the arrest. So, yes.
When someone's ordered that they're never allowed to own another animal, how is that enforced? Like, I would assume that's in the disposition of the court documents, but let's say you come across somebody that owns another dog. Like, is that something we in the state can charge? How is that?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of strange what it ends up being called. So you're from DuPage, right? Darien. Okay, so you'd want to reach out to felony screening because the statute in Illinois is specific that if you've been ordered not to possess animals because of a ban, whether it be 5, 10, lifetime, whatever it is, you're subject to two things. You're subject to indirect criminal contempt of court, so we'll have to file, meaning the state, an indirect criminal contempt of court petition, okay? And then they're subject immediately to immediate forfeiture of whatever animals they're in possession of. So for example, if you have someone that you know has a lifetime ban, they're in possession of animals, you can forfeit those dogs. So you seize them and then we deal with the immediate forfeiture of it within court. But you'll want to reach out to felony screening because like I said, we file an indirect criminal contempt petition and then they're subject not only to fines, the immediate forfeiture of the animals, but also they're subject to going to jail.
So we go on a call over there and we acknowledge it, we can seize them.
Yeah, yeah.
But we would have to have direct knowledge of.
Yeah, so for example, I was gonna say it's easier when it's a DuPage case and you can pull up the sentencing order, but otherwise, for example, let's say this person had a prior conviction from Will County and Will County ordered a lifetime ban. Before you would do something like that, you'll just wanna confirm however you can with their court system or calling Will County and confirm that they are in fact ordered to like a lifetime ban or 10-year ban, whatever it was. Any other questions?
I don't know what she said. So is that information, like, if this guy is banned,
Yeah.
a week later goes to ABC Dog Adoption, and adopts another dog, does ABC Dog Adoption have the ability to find out if this person is banned?
Technically, all of the court records are public record, so they do have the ability to find that. Because, for example, when someone gets sentenced to a lifetime ban, it's in their criminal sentence order, which anyone in the public can find. I know. There's not like a registry. It's not like the sex offender registry where it's online where anyone can type in a name and you see it immediately. So quite frankly, these places would have to do a little bit of digging to see if someone is ordered to a lifetime ban.
Yeah, and the background search will show that they were convicted of animal cruelty or aggravated animal cruelty.
But
So hopefully that will cause them to not be able to adopt, unless it's furry baby.
all right. Do we have any other questions? Obviously, if you guys think of anything else, please feel free to reach out to myself and then Anthony. His email is going to be anthony.ursuto@dupagecounty.gov. But seriously, if you guys ever have questions, please reach out, whether it be not just the forfeiture that we talked about today, but also just if you're working on a cruelty investigation. We're here to help. I know Maddie has had quite a few animal cruelty investigations.
Yes.
I'm sure she'd love to also help. I'm throwing her out there. But seriously, just please feel free to reach out. We're here to help.
Not
So.
just dogs and cats either.
Yeah,
Any
we do
animal.
all sorts of animals.
Turtles, if anybody has any turtles.
Roosters, chickens.
Roosters,
We have the
chickens,
snakes.
horse,
We have
Snakes,
Snakes.
lizards,
Guinea pigs.
I'm trying. There was bearded
Oh,
dragons.
Savannah monitor lizard.
Oh yeah,
Python.
all sorts of weird things. But anyways, all right. Thank
Well,
you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. They provided some great information. And you guys will be emailed these resources. I think some of the tricky things that we run into is sometimes officers will call our office and they have questions about what they can or can't do. And you're welcome to give us a call first if you want to start with us, and then we give you whatever information we can, and we can escalate it up the chain to our state's attorney's office. You guys have like a whole animal welfare group now, so, yeah. Yeah, so,